Hi guys, this video is on complex numbers. We use complex numbers when solving quadratics because not all quadratics have real solutions. And an example of a quadratic equation that does not have real solutions is x squared plus 1 equals 0. And you saw why that was in the video that you guys just watched. To overcome this, mathematicians created / discovered the imaginary unit I. So we always write I in lowercase. Um, and the unit I is equivalent to the square root of -1. So if you think about that a little bit more, the reason why we need an imaginary unit for the square root of -1 is because you can't think of any number multiplied with itself that would give you a negative number. If you multiply, let's say, if you multiply 2 times 2, you get a positive 4, right? If you multiply -2 times -2, you'd still get positive 4. You wouldn't ever get back a negative number. Excuse me. So that is why we need the imaginary unit I to represent the square root of -1. Also, you should know that I squared is equal to -1. All right. I can be used to write the square root of any negative number. For example, if we have the square root of -5, and we break that down using our product property, we have the square root of -1 times 5. Now that we see the square root of -1, we can take that as I. So your answer becomes I square root of 5. I is part of the complex number system. And I'm going to show you that on the next page. The complex number system involves all real numbers and imaginary numbers. So you can see here you have all the real numbers. You have integers, you have rational numbers, whole numbers, you have irrational numbers, and then you have the imaginary number system where you have complex numbers, like 2 plus 3i, 5 minus 5i, which we won't get into that really in like adding and subtracting those in this class. That's more math 3. And then you have pure imaginary numbers that just have -4i or 6i. There's no plus or minus a rational number. All right, so an example of solving an equation with a complex solution. Here's one that we're going to solve by square roots. We have 3x squared plus 10 equals -26. I want to isolate the square term just like we learned about in the last video. So I'm going to subtract 10, and that gives me 3x squared equals -36. And then I divide both sides by 3, and that gives me x squared equals -12. Now I have to take the square root of both sides. So square root of x squared is just x. And the square root of -12 is going to become the square root of -1 times 12. So then I see that I have that negative number, take out I, and I'm still left with the square root of 12 that I need to reduce or simplify. So that is simplified to 4 times 3, or 2 times 2 times 3, and it becomes 2 square root of 3. So my answer is now x equals plus or minus 2i, 2 coming from the 12 square root of 3. And my solutions are 2i square root of 3 and -2i square root of 3. So pretty much anytime you see a negative under the square root, you're going to take out I, okay, anytime. Because that negative is basically a -1, and the square root of -1 is I. All right.